President said.
President Trump said on Sunday that individual European leaders would visit the United States at the start of this week to discuss how to resolve the Russian-Ukraine war.
I mean, we have some very interesting discussions. You know, certain European leaders are coming over to our country on Monday or Tuesday, and individually. And I think we're going to get that settled. I think we're going to get it settled. We have to.
Trump also said he expects to speak with Russian President Vladimir Putin in the coming days.
When do you plan to speak to President Putin next? And what
Very
might second
soon. Over the next couple of days. Look, we're going to get it done. The Russia-Ukraine situation, we're going to get it done. I have confidence we're going to get it done.
Trump also said he is prepared to increase sanctions against Russia. His comments come after an overnight assault by Russia set the main government headquarters in Kyiv on fire. President Volodymyr Zelensky said the drone and missile barrage killed 4 people and caused damage across the north, south, and east of the country.
It's such a horrible waste of humanity. So, no, I am not thrilled with what's happening there, I will tell you.
The largest air attack of the war on Ukraine overnight on Sunday. Ukrainian officials said the main government building in central Kiev was set on fire, and 4 people, including an infant, were killed. President Volodymyr Zelensky said the drone and missile barrage caused damage across the north, south, and east of the country.
Clearly, Russia is trying to inflict pain on Ukraine with even more brazen attacks. This is a clear sign that Putin is testing the world, whether they will accept or tolerate this. That is why it is important that the statements of leaders, states, and institutions be backed by strong actions.
Russia launched 805 drones and 13 missiles against Ukraine. The Ukrainian Air Force said they downed 751 drones and 4 missiles. Thick smoke could be seen rising into the clear blue sky from the burning top floor of the main government building just after sunrise. Elsewhere in Kiev, residential apartments were hit and damaged. Dozens of residents, wrapped in blankets, gathered on the streets to survey the damage to their homes. Russian President Vladimir Putin has resisted calls for a ceasefire, emboldened by strengthening relations with China. President Trump said on Sunday he is ready to move to a second phase of sanctioning Russia.
They're losing 7,000 between Ukraine and Russia, 7,000 soldiers every single week. It's such a horrible waste of humanity. So, no, I am not thrilled with what's happening there, I will tell you.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said on Sunday that additional economic pressure could prompt Putin to enter peace talks. The Kremlin said on Monday that no sanctions would ever force Russia to change course in the Ukraine war. The European Union is currently drafting a 19th package of Russian sanctions. EU diplomats said it is likely to include more listings of Chinese companies, Russian banks and ships, as well as a transaction ban on Russian oil. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News.
President Trump says that European leaders will return to the United States to discuss the Russia-Ukraine war. Joining us now to discuss this is retired U.S. Navy Captain Armin Kurdian. He's also a foreign policy and national security analyst, as well as a California State Senate candidate. So thank you for joining us today, Armin. So now Trump said that the leaders will be coming individually. So what do you think could be achieved in this round of meetings?
Good afternoon, Don. The European Union and the United States need to be coordinated on a package of Russian sanctions for quite simply the singular reason that coordinating our efforts between our currencies, between our economies, your reporter had it right there at the very, very end. Strangulating or sanctioning anything that has to do with Russian energy production, whether it's the firms, the exportation, the movement of dollars, the use of the banking system, all that stuff is what is financing the war right now. Russia is on a war footing. Fully a third of their economy is going into war production. They're building 2,000 to 3,000 of these Shahed-style suicide drones per month. Now, keep in mind that these drones are, frankly, more of a weapon of terror, much like the V-1 buzz bomb was during World War II when Germany was using them against London and other targets in England. However, at the same time, it is causing untold havoc and destruction within Ukraine. It's not crushing the Ukrainian will to fight, However, at the same time, it is causing a lot of hate and discontent within that country. The real pressure is coming from the front lines, and the United States and the EU, and I've been saying this for months now, they need to get really, really serious about pressuring Russia to end this war.
So you listed the things that's financing the war, right? And we heard earlier from that report that there's the 19th package of sanctions being drafted by the EU. And, we can talk about how effective those sanctions have been, but Trump says he's not happy about the current state of negotiations. What do you think could motivate Putin to really come to the table and, sincerely talk about peace?
Probably the goal of sanctions or any type of action by the West needs to basically an internal political pressure against Putin to end this war. Something which dissatisfies his inner circles, something which dissatisfies Russian oligarchs, something which dissatisfies, shall we say, his biggest supporters within the country, his power base within the country, and that's what's going to have to do it. Obviously, there needs to be some simultaneous work to continue to reinforce and strengthen Ukrainian army and air force and the military to stop the inexorable Russian advance, which has been very, very slow. It hasn't been necessarily very successful, but they are moving forward. If Putin sees that his power base is in jeopardy or that he's perhaps at risk of being deposed, I think that more than anything might compel him to bring the war to an end. So if that has to do with money, basically the folks who are running these energy companies or anything of that sort, that might be the most direct path to coming up with a ceasefire. But at the same time, it can't be the only axis of Western efforts.
So what do you think about how sustainable this war is? Because we heard earlier from President Trump in the report saying that between Ukraine and Russia, thousands of soldiers are lost every single week. So talk to us about that, the sustainability long-term in the physical sense and economically for both nations.
Sadly, the physical ability of this war to continue for both Ukraine and its allies and Russia and its allies to sustain this war is virtually unlimited, because it's not just Russia and Ukraine. It's the United States and Western European allies that are funneling equipment and other material into Ukraine, and it's China, it's Iran providing material and financial support, it's North Korea providing human support, it's India providing financial support through purchase of Russian oil. So long as the rest of the world is supporting these two nations in combat, and right now it seems to be in relative balance, the war can continue indefinitely almost. Remember, Russia and their side are limited in their economic might. They cannot match the West. However, they are definitely exceeding the West in terms of their will. They are willing to do everything that it takes to win this war. The United States and the European Union so far have not. And I'm really frustrated by Donald Trump, despite all the great work he's done around the world, in not bringing more pressure and more sanctions to Putin, a la what we actually spoke about. Until he actually does that and sanctions every last square inch of earth that he possibly can against Putin and Russia's war effort, they're not going to feel that kind of pressure, because their economic engine is right now running at full steam. If you strangulate their money, Russia runs out of money and they're unable to basically buy any more drones or pay for any more North Korean troops, at which point those two nations may say, well, it's still in our financial interest to finance this war because it's still draining the West. So even if they do that, the war could still continue. But at the very least, it might stop Russia's advance, and they may have to even start withdrawing.
Okay, so you mentioned that you're sort of disappointed, but we heard President Trump as he was speaking to reporters. I mean, it sounded to me that he's actually rather confident that this war will come to an end in whatever manner. What do you think he has in mind? What is he confident about?
Well, he was confident a year ago that he's going to be able to bring this war to an end. And just to be very clear, I'm very happy with his efforts to make a good faith gesture, a good faith effort, full press to bring the war to an end. You didn't really see that under the Biden administration. He truly shows himself as a man of peace. But sometimes to be a man of peace, you also have to be a man of war. in terms of what sanctions he's looking at, like I said, it's probably all focused on Russian energy production. Perhaps, we can go insofar as sanctioning other countries which are providing, say, dual-use equipment which could be used to enhance, produce, sustain, repair facilities that basically pull Russian oil and natural gas out of the ground. Are we able to go so far as to start seizing tankers which are coming out of Russia, through an international coalition and saying, you come out of Russia fully laden with oil, that ship will be seized on the high seas and taken to a neutral port and impounded until the war is done. At which point does the Russian Navy become involved? If they do, the Russian Navy is still a shadow of its former self. The Ukrainians have done a pretty big number on the Black Sea Fleet, and I don't think the Russian Navy is going to be able to protect their fleet anymore. And that point, say, okay, is China now going to put its Navy out to sea and protecting some of these tankers? There's too many tankers to protect, so they won't be able to get them all. But honestly, that is a kind of a one-upsmanship. Sometimes you have to go several rungs up the escalation ladder to get somebody's attention. Perhaps that might be one.
Okay, we can probably talk about this for another hour, but I'll just ask you one more thing. So I think it's important to understand how confident Putin actually is in his ability to win this war, because I think the more confident that Putin is, there will be fewer things that can convince him to actually stop the fighting. So maybe you can speak to that. How sure of himself is he in winning this?
I honestly cannot imagine. I mean, Putin's a rational actor. He may be a terrible person, but he is a rational actor. I can't imagine that he actually believes he's going to be able to take all of Ukraine, because that is a very serious national security threat or global security threat to Europe and the United States. We cannot let it happen. Perhaps he is waiting to see if something happens. He perhaps is waiting for an unknown, some other type of global geopolitical event which is going to basically break the law, or perhaps take that area around Donetsk, which is the most highly fortified area, which has been stopping his advance into the heart of Ukraine. He might be hoping to say, okay, if I can get a breakthrough there, the rest of the country is open, and perhaps I'll be able to go and take Kyiv quickly enough before the West is actually able to stop. In all the scenarios I can think in my head, that might be the only thing I can think of that might be rational in the sense of Putin and his military and political leaders in terms of actually winning this war. Until that happens, there is no way they'll be able to occupy Ukraine.
Okay, well, Armin, great discussion. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Don.